Hey, welcome back to Disaster Podcaster, the show where we break down the business side of running a restoration business. I'm Clark.
And I'm Toby. We're going to talk today about something every contractor, restoration company, and trade business faces at some point. We're going to talk about the divide between the technician mentality and the business owner mentality.
Cool. Love that topic, Toby.
I'm good. I'm good. Super stoked to get back into episode 2.
Yeah, we've had a lot of feedback from the first one. A lot of people were glad we came back, but they really liked the both of us on here together. So I think they were saying that Clark, we didn't like just you, but I'm glad you're doing this with me, and I think it just adds another layer to it. And your perspective is much different than mine on a lot of topics. So we got a lot of feedback. Yeah. So this is a fun topic. This is something that we kind of see in our coaching a lot. So you've seen this before. It's the project manager and field teams are all about getting the job done right. You know, it's the tools, it's the tech, it's the process and the procedures, all important. Making sure every detail is perfect. Meanwhile, the business owner is thinking, okay, how do we make money? How do we scale this thing? How do we grow it so that we can all have the dreams and the things that we want in the mission statement, right?
Yeah. And when the two mindsets don't align, it creates friction. There's a lot of resistance to change, and sometimes there's just full on, I don't want to say fights, but there's tension. So we're going to break it down. I want to talk about the problems, more importantly, how we can bridge the gap so that you can scale, whoever's listening, whether you're an owner or a technician, without the constant fights. So in this first section, we're going to talk about the two mindsets, the technician, and then we're going to talk about the business owner. Let's start with the technician project manager mindset.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start because this is where most of our industry started. So the technician mindset doesn't mean that someone thinks only like a technician, but that is where their training and their background and experiences have come from. Doing the job right, following the standards, cleaning the right way, drying the right way, documentation, et cetera, et cetera. This is also your project managers. You might call them lead techs and field supervisors. Everyone has a different title for it, so let's don't get lost in that. These are the guys in the trenches making things happen. Now, people in the office make things happen too, but these are usually the first line. These are the ones that are going to the 2 a.m. call outs. These are the ones dealing in the CATx in the summer in Texas when it's 105 degrees outside. So this is certainly that. And I think what's important as we go through this divide, this thing is we want to look at this as what you called it, a bridge. I would expect owners and their teams to listen to this together, or listen to it, consume it, and create their own coaching from that. So, but definitely we're talking about the technician mindset, but it could be some other middle management or previously technicians that have maybe promoted up to a different level or something like that.
Yeah, when I'm talking to our clients and coaching these business owners and leaders, I talk about outcomes versus tasks, right? Leaders focus on outcomes, managers focus on tasks. So I think the focus of a manager, project manager, or a technician is more on the execution side. It's on the tasks. How do we get this job done right? What's the best way to handle this particular situation, whether it's a water loss, mold job, whatever. Like, what's the best way to handle this particular situation? And they're thinking about the step-by-step process. And then how do we, to kind of go along with that, how are we going to make sure that it's the best quality so that we can achieve the outcome that's been set forth by the leadership team?
Yeah, as you're reading that, I'm thinking, I know we get asked about SOPs a lot. Well, all parts of the company desire and want SOPs, but for different reasons. Technicians already have the SOPs, but they're right there. They're either there partially or they're being built, and they value process. They value going from wet to dry, as you've talked about in your blog. They value from going a customer that's concerned to not. So this is definitely a process oriented, and it's very, very static on the project or the few projects that they're running. They take pride in their craftsmanship. We see it all the time. Techs, PMs, even some owners that were previously that they still Google and goggle at the containment pictures and the equipment at the trade shows. So it's a good thing. We're in the trades. It's blue collar. It's who we are. So to them, doing a job well matters more than anything. Money, reviews, they kind of come secondary to, you can't tell me I didn't do a good job. And honestly, that's a great thing. I really want to continue to parrot that. This is not saying that stop doing those things. You want people who care about the quality of the work, because the quality of work is your most important sales and marketing engine as well.
Yeah, something we see a lot, to a point that you just made, is in this particular industry, a lot of owners, until I would say the last few years when there's been a lot of M&A, but a lot of owners started as techs and they went out on their own. So they still are battling that mindset. And that's what we're talking about here. It's like, how do you, and you know, you said it a long time ago, WRT to CEO, like, how do we go from one to the other and go from a task mindset to a leadership mindset? And that's kind of what we're talking about. But here's where the friction starts. These guys, a lot of times, they don't see the business side of things. They think, why does the owner care so much about the job costs? Why are we always talking about margin instead of doing great work? And that's where we're going to shift into the business owner and leadership mindset. You know, how do we go from the WRT to CEO?
Yeah. You know, I think technicians, lead techs, project managers, obviously everyone's in a different scale. I think that they understand that there is a profit conversation, but it's abstract. It's they don't know. They know it's there, but they don't know what it is and what the numbers associated with that profit, job cost, budget, those type of things are. Efficiency. When you say efficiency to a person that's never run a business, they mean, well, I'm working hard. That's not the same thing. So I want to try, and I'm hoping that this podcast will start to clear some of this out. I want to pause for just a second for our sponsor. Now, as you said, now on the other side of things, you've got the owner or the business leader mindset. So owner could be also a general manager or a couple of owners. So I want to talk about this. There's several different things. They're thinking things like, how do we grow this company? And how do we stay profitable? I think every business owner knows that you're not always profitable, but you want to be profitable most of the time. There's just some jobs that just, from our own reasons or the client's reasons, or in our industry, the insurance reasons, they aren't profitable, but that needs to be the exception, not the rule. But that's always on a conversation. That's always certainly part of all meetings and trainings. And how do we keep the doors open and scale this thing? So when the teams hear that in the field, especially an abundance of that and not enough accolades and focus on the things that they're particularly concerned about, it feels like a one-sided corporate feeling, and that they don't value what's getting done in the field. And that's going to lead into the technician PM to also not value what they do as much and think that that's not as important, and maybe unknowingly, subconsciously pull back on some of those things.
Yeah, you know, like I said before, it's an outcome focus versus a task focus. As the leader, as the owner, they're looking at the big picture. It's not just about getting the job done anymore. It's about making sure that the company can pay employees well, invest in better equipment and training, not go broke, chasing perfection on every single little detail of each job.
Yeah, definitely doesn't feel like it, but it can be a real handicap. So, and here's the problem. Techs, project managers, those on that side of things, they don't understand the financial realities of the business. We talked about that a while ago. They understand that we need to make money. They understand that this is what we spend, this is what we charge. Every owner will tell you that when a teammate sees that we got a full check for a $50,000 job, the business owner is almost, and Toby, you'll have heard this, they're almost afraid to share the financials, because the perception from the field is that we just got a check for $50,000 and we now made $50,000. And I think that is also a divide in the understanding of the business. And I know we're going to probably bring that up to some degree, but I want to continue to scratch this and make this concept real so that people can relate to it.
Yeah, we're talking about two different mindsets, right? Like the person that's focused on getting the job done, and then the person who's focused on getting all the jobs done and making a profit. But it's important to remember that in this industry, that we're as we're talking about this, we're talking about it in two very concise definitions, really. But in this industry, the lines are really blurred because there are so many business owners who did start as a technician. So, a tech might say, "Why are we rushing this? Why should we take extra time to make it perfect?" But then the owner's thinking, "Yeah, but that extra time can just cost us an extra $2,000 in labor, and it just ate away our profit at this job." So again, if we look at it in terms of the two very specific avatars, so to speak, um, the business owners in the restoration industry, a lot of times we find are actually still struggling and fighting with, I need to hurry up and get this job done because I can't afford to spend an extra $2,000, but yet I'm still striving for perfection and making sure that everything looks perfect and is perfect. So it's a conflict. It's a conflict when you're trying to go from WRT to CEO, for example. Um, let's talk about the next part of this, and that's like, where does all this come from?
Yeah,
What's the root of this, the cause of this divide?
the root. And I think you covered some of there. So here's where I think some of it comes from, and we've alluded to this in talking about the problem is it's baked into the DNA of most contractors that they did. Now, again, you mentioned maybe some M&A, maybe outside people who bought a franchise and they used to be a banker or a cop, and we know people on both sides of that, right? Firemen.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
they don't come from our industry and they don't have as much of the attachment to the working with your hands, all American blue collar type of thing. So I think that's a lot of the root of it. But I want to point out, Toby, that we need to be fair that in this business and any small business, sometimes a lot of people wear a lot of different hats. So that transitioning from both is different. It takes a lot of discipline. And then lastly, so I think that's what at the root of it is everyone's DNA. Most of our industry, maybe 90%, comes from the industry of some level or another, and gets into it.
yeah. And like I said before, a lot of owners, they start as the technicians. They were in the field. They're doing the work. So they understand the nuances of doing the job, but then they get ambitious. They want to live this entrepreneurial life, and they get lost in the entrepreneurial myth, which for those that don't know is a book called E-Myth. They decide to start their own company.
And I love that. I mean, Toby, we get those calls a lot. I love entrepreneurship. I love drive and mission. I just think that sometimes, and I'm bad about it, is this you lose the reality of what it means to do that. But we do see a
Yeah,
lot of, and our industry doesn't have great. It's rare to have great leadership. So a lot of good PMs, technicians, estimators want to start their own because on Friday they look at their check and they look at, I'm not really going anywhere. It's just not, blah, blah, blah. And that idea, and especially as easy it is in 2025 when we're recording this, it is the start of business. It all happens, but I think this is getting out of that's where it's stuck. At first they're still thinking like a tech and they start their own company. They're still going back. They're faulting to what got me here is going to get me there. We know that's not true. They care about doing the best work possible. Again, hard to fault that, but there is a split, a divide of your attention and your energy needs to go into that. So as the business grows and reality hits, we go and we can throw out some numbers from 0 to 500,000. This is pretty cool. I'm making as much or more money than I've ever made. But it's over that where you start hitting that entrepreneur ceiling, especially as you get close to $1 million. There's a lot of things creeping in that they don't know about: profits and marketing and making the phones ring and building SOPs and HR and stuff like that. And that's where the struggle comes in, and the struggle equals stress, et cetera, which is causing the rip that we're talking about.
Yeah, and while all that's going on, the guys in the field, they haven't made this transition yet. They're still in the do the best work mindset, especially in this industry. A lot of the field guys and gals get really geeked out over the standards and all the equipment and those kinds of things, and they're not necessarily thinking about run a profitable business, and they're not operating from that mindset.
Mm. And that's when we could say arguments or friction or whatever you want, but there's just
I think friction is a good word for that. Yeah.
there's friction there. It doesn't even have a name or a title, and you don't even know why it's there, but it is a divide. And the owner says we need to be more efficient. We're spending too much time on jobs, and the owner, previously being an operator, a PM, might say, when I used to do this, we could get that job done in 3, 5, 8, one day, whatever, in hours. And then the PMs are saying, man, all you care about is money, man. You've sold out. You used to be one of us and you're not us anymore. So the probably real conversations that people listening to this are going to be shaking. I've had, I do my best, but I've got to look out for the company and stuff like that. So I think that's where the friction starts to build and snowball a little bit.
Yeah. The truth is both sides are right in some ways. I mean, we've got to have good quality work, but we also have to do it efficiently, right?
100%. There's if anybody wants to argue with that, then we probably should have a different podcast about that. But you can't have a business that runs based just on the numbers, especially when the service industry where marketing and reputation and branding is really important. What you do and how you do it is important, but you also can't have a business that's only about doing the work. Because if you're not making money, it's not a business. It's a hobby. It's a job. It's a charity. And the very people that feel the friction from the field start to wonder why they don't get a raise and why they're working off of busted trucks and equipment and stuff like that. So this is a root of where there's just a lack of communication and clarity across the corporate governance of how things work and figuring out the balance that everyone contributes to. Hey, let's go on to Kobe to keep it moving along. We've talked about the problem. We've talked about the scabs, and we've been picking at it. And I think a lot of people are really saying, yeah, we're picking up what you're putting down there, Clark and Toby. But let's talk about how to start creating the bridge or maybe sculpt conversations that can alleviate or mitigate. We love the word mitigate. So we can at least address what they're there, but we can work towards this. We both want the same thing. We just aren't communicating the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we fix it? How do we build that bridge to meet in the middle, right? How do we get the team to understand the business side while still respecting their skill in the field? Or how, as a business owner that started as a technician, started your own business, and now you're in this leadership mindset, but you're always conflicted about the technical side, but also the business side. How do we make that transition? I think the first thing is as a business owner, you need to learn to speak the technician's language if you have made that transition. But as a business owner, you also that has moved and is wrestling with the technician mindset, getting super focused on what your numbers are, and things along those lines, communicating the numbers to the technicians that are struggling to understand the business mindset. We need to start learning how to talk the same language, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I think you can say the right things, but you can just say them a different way. There's a whole lot you can pick up in, stay away from the big acronyms, stay away from speaking like an accountant. Just be simple and clean and KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Maybe you'll say, instead of saying we need to be more profitable, guys. Okay. That kind of goes over a lot of people's heads. That's like, how do a person in the field, a project manager, maybe some level, they're saying, how do I actually affect profit? Well, that's a great question. I'm glad somebody asked that. That's probably where we start. But instead of saying we need to be more profitable, hey, if we don't improve our margins, which I'm going to help everybody explain that maybe in this session or another to your team, we won't be able to buy better trucks. Like, we want to upgrade our trucks a little bit. We want to get bigger ones. We can't pay more wages. You're all worth more, and we're fighting that on all sides. But if we're not profitable, we can't do that. And I'd like to get you guys some insurance and some, let's say, uniforms, so you don't ruin your clothes. I know we have CATx. So that's a way. What's in it for them? And then again, of course, piggyback on, but I'm going to tell you guys how we can all apply for that. So good work's important. Tell everybody, hey, good work is important, and you guys really do good work, but the clients also care about speed and efficiency. So we need to make sure that everything's not equally important. They're all equal in their own way, but there are certain times we got to shift things around.
Yeah, I think it's important to frame it in a way that makes sense to them. I saw just this morning, I saw a post from a elementary school teacher in the Baltimore area, and it was a math teacher, and I guess she had been struggling to get her students to understand some concepts, but apparently that class is a huge Baltimore Ravens fan base. So she put, she got a helmet logo and put it on the board, and they love them some Lamar Jackson, so she put it on there, and she framed the math problems in terms of football in a way that they could understand it. And I think that's a great example of in business, like we need to frame the conversations about efficiency, about profitability, all those things in ways, like you said, that they can understand, getting better trucks, paying higher wages, offering benefits, doing some community type things. If we reframe the conversation in a way that it helps them understand how it's going to benefit them rather than just benefiting the business, and most employees see the business as the owner just getting all the profit. So show them how the efficiency actually benefits them, not just the company. The second thing is, project managers need to be taught business thinking. A lot of we talk about the Peter Principle often, and it's this whole notion of giving someone a title because they show up every day, they're consistent, and they're actually good at their job, but maybe they're not ready for leadership. So I think we see this all the time with our client base, with other, with the industry at large, that there's a severe lack of leadership and management development. We focus so much on getting the jobs done and getting better at the technical, the science, the equipment, and things along those lines, and we fail miserably on the leadership development. So the second point, again, just to reiterate it, is that we need to be teaching our junior leaders or rising leaders more, to think more along the lines of business, not as much jobs.
Great stuff. I want to first hot take here. I want to call you out that I don't think that your example of the Ravens, I don't think that people that like the Ravens can learn anything, to be real honest with you.
Touche, sir. Touche.
The Steelers, I can get them.
I hated using it. I hated using the example because I'm a Commanders fan, but it was too good to pass up.
It was but it made sense. It's really relevant. When I'm teaching my classes, Toby, and you were part of one, I use what's called the kind of like. If you have a point to drive home, don't do it directly as it relates to whatever it is that you all do. Take it apart and put it over into, say, it's kind of like when you go to a doctor. It's kind of like when you see a movie. Reframe it into a different context, and it kind of like equalizes the field like there. And then the second thing, what you're talking about is lifting up on, I call them soft skills, your leadership development, your business understanding, your acumen, your communication skills. That is a huge gap. I think it's even generational. I think that we have not done a good job from whatever boomers and X's and Gen Z's to pass those things along. I think we've kind of let schools try to teach everything. And again, I've said it last episode, I am putting a bunch of my energy this year into programs about that. And they are going to be a project manager needs to know what they're responsible for now. It's no longer the drawing. It's now to delegate to other people. People know how to delegate, when you need to request a new tool or a new software, something like that, how to put together almost like a pitch or a presentation. Because when you're speaking to an owner or someone that has a business to run, they're like, I like the look of it, but how is that going to help us make money? Because we are struggling cash flow wise. So I think it's important for junior leaders to have an understanding, just as we want owners to have an understanding in the field, we want juniors to have an understanding of what makes the business tick, so they can put an ROI on something and request what they want. But I loved your analogy, and the teachers. Anybody wants to know how to hire great employees, a teacher and people from medical are two areas that are really good, because you don't want employees who are good workers. You want great trainers that are training the next people, because if you're scaling, you're going to need that bench to grow up in there. So, again, we're talking about techs and project managers need to understand how the business works. Job costing. They need to understand how capturing the cost of the job in real time, which is labor, materials, equipment, capturing pictures and stuff, how that relates to creating more profitability. That's one way they can help. What margins mean, why margins are important, margins and markup. And those aren't overly complicated education points if you put it into a way. Now, again, you wouldn't try to tell a Ravens fan about margins. They don't know, what that means. Boy, I'm going to get some hate for that one, aren't I? And then just time efficiency, time blocking. We talk a lot about time management. There's a lot of tools for, I don't think that we're always as busy as we think we are. I think we're just spending a lot of energy on the wrong things for too long. And that goes back to maybe not having processes, or even internally not having communications and organizational charts and accountability. So a lot of people are trying to do the same things and they're over each other. And so I think those are some things that techs and project managers should request. If they're not being taught that, they should self do that, because it's going to help you in this job, your next job, or if you start your own company. These are the skill sets that are going to help you escalate your life and your career.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the clients that I see have the most success are the ones who involve their junior leaders, their field managers in the financial discussions, not just numbers on the spreadsheet, but actually walking them through how much money is left after payroll, materials, overhead, and all those things. If your junior leaders can start to see, like, holy smokes, it costs a lot of money to make money. And they start to understand, like, that it's one thing to tell people, hey, you need to do A, B, and C. It's another thing completely to show them why we say we want them to do A, B, and C. And this is a perfect example of that. Like, if you show them the numbers and if you show them the decision-making process that leads you as the owner or leader to say, hey, A, B, and C will help us achieve our goals, then they can get on board with that. It's not just them having to follow a directive. They're actually a part of the mission now. And when you have that buy-in, you're going to go so much further than just a company that just hands down directives. The third thing that go ahead.
Let me point something out about that. Let me remind anyone watching this that if we will agree that a good tech, lead tech, project manager, whatever those fields are, they're great problem solvers. So if you include them in a problem, you're probably going to be surprised that they're going to say, oh, wow, then, because they have the most control over the profits in the field. But
That's a great point.
Problem solvers that like to achieve things are going to say, if I know what you want me to do, if I know what the goal is, I'm a goal-oriented person, and maybe you just haven't ever thought of it in that way, that it's for the business and not just a project. So including people, find a way to monthly over P&L, show them what it costs for fuel, what you spend your marketing on, and why it's important. And then obviously why marketing is important, because if we go to a new lead and inspection, it costs us money to get that lead, to go out and roll the truck to that house and do that. It's expensive to acquire a customer. Maybe we start closing more of them. Maybe we start getting more reviews from them so that we don't have so much spend. So I think those are great conversations for teams to have together. And again, bring it down to the level to where it's relatable to someone in the field that doesn't look at the P&L all day and doesn't look at the the accounts and the banks and stuff like that.
Good points. Let's talk about the third point here: creating a culture of mutual respect. You love culture. You're a big culture guy.
Yeah. Um, so what I think you mean by that, and I agree, a culture is of mutual respect is, um, I'm the owner, and yes, I'm stressed and receivables, and Allstate doesn't want to send a check, and a customer is trying to blah blah blah. All that you got to compartmentalize that stuff because you still have a lot of women and men in the field that you've spent a lot of your time with that are working very very hard, and that's not their problem. They're just trying to do the great thing. They're still trying to do the right work. So the mutual respect is, I respect what you're doing, and then in comes the Jocko, the extreme ownership. But I have, as a leader, I have probably come down hard on some of you, but you don't really know why. I haven't respected you enough to include you in the why those things are important. So, at the end of the day, the goal is to make the techs think like accountants. They need to their specialty and their task and their role is exactly what they're doing. They just need to know how to optimize that position to equate to mutual gains and profits, things like that. So it's about getting both sides to respect each other. And listen, I think if you respect your team, they're going to respect you, especially if you're showing ownership. Now, you mentioned something earlier. If you talk about being broke all the time and you're driving $110,000 Denali, and that's going to create a bad culture. We talk about culture. Those things are what people see. We have to own that. We have to meet people where they are in their perception of things. So if the company's not doing great, I'm not saying don't have nice things. Just don't.
Yeah, right.
Don't beat things up and don't scratch that super hard when it's contrasting and it just doesn't make sense and it's not believable.
Yeah. Yeah. Owners need to respect the skills and the craftsmanship of the folks in the field. But at the end of the day, the techs also need to respect that if the business doesn't make money, none of us have jobs. And that's something I really drive home when, in our client onboarding course, for example, that's a great example of where a divide comes in between these two avatars that we're talking about. Technicians go out there, they get the job done, but then, we got to collect on it, and they're like, we got the job done. We're not too worried about collecting the money. Well, if we can help them understand that, no, we need you to be part of the receivables process because you're the one that really built the relationship with the client, and you can really help us collect this money. And if we don't collect the money, we're cash strapped. And if we're cash strapped, that means we're going to miss payroll. So getting everybody to kind of understand their role on all levels of a project, and having a mutual respect to say, hey, I'm on the field level. The business needs to make money. So let me do my part and make sure that I am fulfilling my role to the fullest and maybe a little bit beyond, to ensure that the people downstream from me are able to do their jobs well also.
Yeah. I've got two more points to send us on to the closeout for this. So, you're talking about mutual respect. I'm thinking about how would leadership or ownership continue to model what a good culture looks like. So if you see people in the field, in the project management, and they're doing a great job at something, let's get a little better at celebrating those openly. Like maybe it's at this week's meeting, someone says, hey, I really want to, here's a trophy, here's a Chick-fil-A or a Home Depot gift card. I recognize someone not only this week, but consistently doing a good job with a customer onboarding, with containment and dry logs and stuff like that. Not just say, hey, I'm not getting pictures and notes into the CRM or the project management software and it's hurt. Don't just focus on that. I know that's what you want to say, and those things are important, but how about saying, but you do this really well. And by the way, Toby, your containment and your dry logs are among the best I've ever, even better than I did when I was in the field. I would like you to take that on as the mentor and trainer for our new people and existing. You're the person that's going to train everybody, because why should I train them if I don't do them as well as you? That's a respect, saying I recognize game and I want to reward the game. And then secondly, the thing I would say about these things is owners, take off the khakis, get in the field, show up, handle some equipment, handle the tools, help them, put them first in front of the customer. say, I'm the owner, I'm Clark, I'm Toby, but I'm here with my team. They really wanted me to experience what they're going through with this new style. We're doing stuff. I'm just here as training. I still want you to talk to them. That is respect. And that lead tech, while they're going to be nervous in the beginning, they're going to be like, boss is watching. They're like, the boss really is here to like witness what I do, like in my greatness, and probably help me to be better. Cause I think most people do want to be better at the end of the day. So I think that creates that culture of bringing yourself back in. And then lastly, alternatively, bring people up out of their level. Lead tech, let them come spend the day as an estimator one day. It's not what they do, but they might respect an estimator more and get mutual respect by seeing what somebody else does and how and why it's important. So let's get ready to wrap it up. And if you're running a trade or restoration business, you have to bridge this gap between the technician mindset and the business. And that's in others and self. I believe that everybody has a $1 million business in this industry. They have it in them. I think there's enough losses out there. I mean, we have a lot of saturation. I think some people go to 3. What keeps them from going there is not becoming a portion of, don't change who you are, but you have to develop a new mindset to get to the next. And sometimes your team will pull you back down because they're like, you're selling. You want to still be one of the gang, right? But you've got to learn how to manage and understand the importance of that. So I think that's the bridge, is start to cross it, show everybody what the bridge is, bring other people across the bridge on the other side. And I think that mutual respect will be there.
Yeah. At the end of the day, what it means is educating your junior leaders. We're calling them project managers in the context of this conversation, about the business, about the realities of business, the cost of doing business, things along those lines, but also doing it in a way that they understand. You're referring back to the teacher in the Baltimore Ravens example. Put it in a context that they can conceptualize. And if you get this right, you're going to have a team that's bought into the vision. They're on the boat with you, rowing in the same direction. They're not standing on shore with a rope tied to the boat holding you back.
That's good. Let me add, Toby, sometimes people pick things up quicker than others, depending on what they're going to. It likely isn't going to stick the first time. This is a long-term, this is gardening. You're planting a seed and you're growing. It's repetitive, be consistent, but be grace and mercy. It might take some people a few times to break old. It's very hard to break old habits. What is the old adage is, it's easier for me to teach you something new than to change your mind about something that you already know. And this is one of those things where there are a lot of reasons why people just are afraid to go to the next level and think about things another way. They may have a political alignment that says, I don't like capitalism. I think corporations are evil. Some corporations are evil. That's very true. But let's talk about the one we have. I mean, we're a small, what does the SBA and say as a small business? Under 30 million? I mean, it's still a small business, and small businesses buy locally and stuff like that. But yeah, I think this is a minute to learn, lifetime to master type of thing. And the better ones, those that are better at this, see the rewards in culture, baseball background, the farm team, recruiting from within, from people who have learned and overcome stuff. And then they now have a story and a experience to teach others, and their bridging is easier for them because they went through it with you, with you and with the company.
You stole my thunder. I was going to say, you mentioned gardening earlier, and I was like, man, I really see this more as farming. You need to be building a farm team. You as the owner, we keep mentioning owners developing junior leaders. If you're a project manager, you should have the mindset of, if I'm going to move up, I need to be developing my techs, lead techs. I need to be identifying talent as early as possible and nurturing these people so that I can develop them into a project manager, so that I can become an estimator or I can become a GM. If you have an abundance mindset in that regard versus being like keeping people held down because you're afraid of them taking your job, you've got the wrong mindset. You need to be developing every single person that reports to you so that they can replace you. And the sooner that you can get that mindset as a junior leader, man, you're going to go places.
Yeah. If you you're going to be recognized for a promotion if you have someone, but if you have someone to replace you, but if you don't, you're kind of stuck, and that might be, it might be your own fault. Man, this is good. If this episode hit home for you, we would love a comment. Subscribe and like, of course, but comment helps us with a feedback loop of what we may have missed, experiences that you had. And if we ever talk about this again, we may even have you on our next podcast, but share with your team, either the actual podcast, listen to it together during a meeting, or just text it to everybody, or just create your own training and lessons and sessions out of it. But this is something that I'm glad we're talking about, because it's certainly something that a lot of people want to overcome. And Toby and I both, having been originally in service business in the field, having moved into ownership, it's something that we both struggle with sometimes, right? I work on perfection way more than progress sometimes. And sometimes just launch and just go. And I get stuck on perfecting the 100% when 100% probably doesn't exist.
Yeah, if you're struggling with any of these issues, be sure to check out Restoration Business Academy. We'll have a link in the description below. But we have a entire platform of community. Honestly, we're up to several hundred restorers in our community who are basically seeking the same things. Everybody's looking to get better in the business aspect of restoration. And we go deep into this kind of stuff in a collaborative type of way. We also have a ton of free resources, free downloads, 95 great responses to adjusters. A lot of people, there's some fun ones in there, but we got a lot of course material, educational material as well. So check out the link in the description, jump into Restoration Business Academy, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Hey, thanks for everybody for joining. Hey, I want to remind everyone, the alternate weeks that we're not doing Disaster Podcaster, I just launched another podcast under the same channel, but it's a little bit different theme. It's called My Favorite Guest of the Week. It's interviewing people that are really interesting. Sometimes they're in this industry. Sometimes they're in the divide of, they might be on the project manager and tech level, and they might be the owner. So there's going to be a little bit of something there, but it's what makes them tick, what fires them up, what burns them out, what do they do well, what do they not do well, and you're going to find out that there are a lot of really good humans in here. So check that one out on the alternate weeks. If we're doing this one every other, and that's staggered in, but we loved having this conversation. We'd like to continue it with you. As Toby said, jump into RBA today, or actually yesterday, jump into it yesterday. You're going to find out that there's a lot of people on both sides of this, and you're going to find a different flavor. And we get enough people at different levels, we can start to have segmented little masterminds, and you can talk to other PMs and other technicians about struggles you've had. But that's it for me, man. Toby, thanks for kicking around this ball on the field with me, and I can't wait till the next one. All right, see you, everybody.